Hello and welcome to today's video, and today I'm going to be talking about what could potentially happen to the UK theme park landscape if and when Universal Studios Great Britain eventually opens, which is expected to be within the next 5 years, so around 2030. Now, before I talk about what I think could happen, how this whole project could impact the UK theme park industry, let's talk about the whole backstory of this whole project if you're not up to speed with the whole Universal UK project. Basically, in December 2023, Universal Destinations and Experiences purchased a 500-acre site in Bedford in the UK, and they officially announced that they're in negotiations with the government to build a full theme park resort destination on that site that they bought. Now, details on the actual plans themselves, there's not really many, other than I think planning documents stated that they plan to build. They split the land in two halves. One half of the land is going to be used as the theme park space, and the other half is going to be used as hotels, shopping, and car parks, I believe. So it's a huge site what we're planning to build it. If you don't know, a 500-acre site, that's equivalent to the site size of the entire property that Alton Towers takes up. So this park, if it gets approved, which is looking very, very, very likely it will be, it's going to be absolutely massive. And it's going to, literally, ever since this whole project was announced, it's been debated so much. In fact, pretty much everyone's been saying all the parks in this country are going to have to step up their game. And ever since this project was announced, like all of last year and even some of looking towards the start of this year and next couple of years, parks have been taking this different ways. So basically, the whole premise of this video, we're going to try and figure out how the whole UK theme park industry will be impacted by the time Universal Great Britain opens. But in order to get to that point, we first need to look at what parks are doing now in order to prepare, in order to bring more visitors to their parks to compete with Universal Great Britain, because the parks in this country have got they've had about a 7-year head start roughly, because the Universal project was announced in December 2023, and so basically they've had a head start for a few years. And how are the parks doing so far? Well, it's varying levels of actual. It's hard to say. Some parks in the UK are definitely on track to improve guest experiences and improve the infrastructure of their parks, and to basically make the guest experience better in order to compete with Universal. Some parks at the moment are actually kind of thriving with the amount of investment they've been putting into themselves. Parks like Drayton Manor, Paulson's Park, Pleasure Beach Resort, and I'll talk about those parks individually. Now, over the last few years, Drayton Manor, they got purchased by the Looping Group in 2020. And ever since Looping Group purchased Drayton Manor, they have been investing so much into that park, because they stated upon purchasing Drayton Manor that they plan to make that park their flagship theme park across all of their parks and attractions. And they have definitely delivered on that promise. They have added so much to Drayton Manor. They've refurbished old rides. They've definitely changed they've put more focus on the target audience of being a family-friendly park by making Shockwave into a normal sit-down coaster and lowering the height restriction, by adding the Frontier Falls area, by building Gold Rush, as well as refurbishing several rides within that area, and also Adventure Cove, Vikings Lands. That's quite a lot of investment. That's about 3 new themed lands within the last 5 years, and that's actually pretty impressive. And obviously several new rides and attractions have been installed since then. As for Paulson's Park, they have been, literally, their future is honestly so bright. They have been one of the UK's, I've never been to Paulson's Park, but I've heard they've been one of the UK's best theme parks for a good number of years now, with the whole cleanliness of the park, the operations of their attractions, and also the actual themed experiences, and overall the new attractions have been improving every single year. Like this year, they plan to open Ghostly Manor, which is the world's first Mack Rides gameplay theatre, and it's a brand new, innovative type of dark ride. And this ride looks like it could potentially be the best dark ride in the UK, even better than the Curse Alton Manor, which is actually saying a lot, because Curse Alton Manor I think is a really good dark ride, But Ghostly Manor, that looks on a whole nother level, both in terms of the technology being used for that attraction and the immersion. Pleasure Beach, now, as for Pleasure Beach, their opening day this year, I didn't go to opening day this past weekend, but I've heard it was absolutely incredible. Like, all the operations were really good, all the rides were running brilliantly. Plus, they're investing for the future as well. They've refurbished Valhalla a couple of years ago and made that a much more immersive experience. Plus, they're in the process of retheming and refurbishing Ice Blast and rename it Launchpad, which should reopen later this year. Not to mention River Caves is undergoing some kind of refurbishment at the moment, and I think that's expected to reopen later this year. And hopefully that will deliver a much more improved ride experience. They're also looking to build a brand new hotel, a gyro swing, and possibly a brand new roller coaster on the site of Grand Prix, I think. Now, the only downside currently to Pleasure Beach this year, apart from obviously River Caves and Ice Blast currently being closed, is that 5 attractions are closed this season. Now, most of them are only just smaller, minor attractions that weren't really that popular. The only attraction loss I could see having an impact is the fact that Red Arrow Skyforce is closed all season. But other than that, it's only like much smaller, kind of obscure attractions in the park. So, point being, I do ramble quite a bit. Point being, some parks are definitely improving and making their experience better for guests and thriving off of the investment. And then other parks are really, really struggling. Now, we know about Merlin Entertainments. They're possibly in some kind of financial crisis, and they're making a lot of cutbacks to their parks, particularly Alton Towers. And I've made a video about Merlin, going into much more detail, which currently sits at over 4,500 views, which thank you guys so much for that, I really appreciate it. And as for Alton Towers, how this season's going to go, we'll see how 2025 plays out for them. But these past couple of seasons haven't been great for them. But we know things could be worse for Towers, because as we heard in the last couple of months, some parks have actually had to close permanently. Like Flambards in Cornwall has shut permanently after nearly 40 years of operation. And more recently, literally within the last couple of days, the company that runs Oakwood, Aspro Parks, they have announced that they are permanently closing Oakwood Theme Park, or at least for the 2025 season. But it's looking likely it's going to be permanent, which is actually devastating. I've never been to Oakwood Theme Park, but I know that the 2 most iconic attractions at that park, Speed the Ride and Megaphobia, I know people are going to be absolutely devastated to the fact that we're losing those rides, but a lot of people are praying that those rides get relocated or sold off to other parks so they continue operating, particularly Megaphobia as well, because I've heard that is the UK's best wooden coaster, and it was a bucket list coaster for me as well. I really wanted to go on it, so I'm praying that it gets relocated to another park and it doesn't just get completely scrapped, never to be seen again. So yeah, the difference between how these parks are responding to the plans for Universal is pretty much day and night. Some parks are gearing up, preparing for Universal when that opens by improving their overall infrastructure, guest experience and attractions, and other parks are really, really struggling by cutting back on their operations or just closing completely. So if it continues at the rate it's going now, I could see Merlin Entertainment's possibly selling off some of their theme parks. I mean, we know that they're looking to sell some of their Sea Life centres, so who's to say that the next step won't be just to sell some of their full-on theme park attractions, like Alton Towers or Fort Park, or possibly Chessington as well. Pleasure Beach, parks like Pleasure Beach, Drayton Manor, Paulson's Park, they'll be in a much better spot than they are now by 2030. Like Pleasure Beach, they'll have had hopefully this brand new hotel built, brand new gyro swing, possibly new coaster, as well as refurbished older attractions that have had much better upkeep and can overall deliver a better guest experience and have like a longer operating service life. And Drayton Manor, I think they are going to be at their peak within the next few years. In fact, they probably already are. Now, Drayton Manor is a park that I've never been to, but I am going to visit later this year in May, so I'll see what the park is actually like, but I've heard really good things about it. But so that if things keep going at the rate they are, then the parks that are improving their overall experience are going to be much better than they currently are when Universal opens. That can provide some genuine competition, and parks that are sort of on the decline could be in a pretty sad state or close completely by the time Universal opens. But then again, 2030 is 5 years away. Things could easily change like the flip of a coin by that time. We never know. Alton Towers, they could see significant investment within the next 5 years. Like they're opening Toxicator this year, which is their first brand new flat ride in a long time. Now we know, fair enough, Toxicator isn't completely brand new to Alton Towers because they have had a top spin before. But I'm reckoning, hopefully, and this is looking on the bright side of things, if Toxicator is genuinely successful for Alton Towers, then they may look into investing into more flat rides in the near future. I mean, especially with the rumour that they've got a contract with Huss Rides to build 3 new flat rides within the next few years, with Toxicator being one of them. So if Toxicator is successful, they may consider building more flat rides in their lineup, because if Alton Towers genuinely want to really compete with Universal and have a chance, they need to make their attraction lineup much more broad, because so far the park mainly consists of a large number of coasters and some dark rides. They haven't really got any major water rides apart from Battle Galleons and the Rapids, and all of their major flat rides apart from Toxicator are gone. So if they want to compete with Universal, add more flat rides and water rides to the lineup, and invest in the upkeep of older attractions and older areas as well. Fort Park and Chessington, their futures are pretty bright, which is great. Like Chessington, they're getting loads of investment at the moment with the retheme of Wild Asia into a possible Minecraft themed land, as well as the retheme of Mexicana into a brand new children's land with 3 brand new rides and the relocation of Jungle Bus from Wild Asia. So Fort and Chessington, their futures are looking really bright. Same applies for Fort Park. When last year they opened Hyperia, and when Hyperia was first announced, they stated this was part of a long-term plan to turn Fort Park into a world-class basically just a major player in the European theme park industry, which is a pretty bold statement. But hopefully, if Merlin managed to find their way through this possible financial crisis, or just quit with the cutbacks, then they can deliver on that promise. So yeah, basically there's 2 sides to this. The positive side, the parks that are already improving will continue improving and be a much better experience by the time Universal opens. And the parks that are struggling at the moment will hopefully find their way out of this dark time and bounce back, and overall, basically bring a much more better guest experience than what they have been bringing these last couple of years with disappointing operations and lack of investment. But if things keep going the way they are now, then the parks that are improving are still going to continue to improve. So either way, their futures are pretty bright anyway. So like Pleasure Beach Resort, Drayton Manor, Paulson's Park, their futures are pretty secure unless something terrible happens between now and 2030, which could be just anything. Like, I don't know, if they somehow take some kind of massive financial hit for whatever reason. But if everything goes smoothly, then their futures are pretty bright. But the parks that are struggling at the moment and are not able to prepare for Universal so that they can compete with it, then they're going to be in a pretty dark place in 5 years from now. Some of them might not even be here by the time Universal Great Britain opens. I mean, we know how quickly things can happen. Like, look at Oakwoods. Nobody was expecting them to announce their permanent closure the other day. I mean, we knew they were planning to remove attractions. Like, they removed the what was it called? The Drenched Water Rides, that large Intamin Shoots attraction, and removed other things as well. But with the fact that, they've refurbished Megaphobia like a couple of years ago to basically reprofile some of the track on that ride, you think that they were looking to possibly invest a little bit more into their park, and it started with refurbishing one of the more iconic attractions. But no, they've just announced their permanent closure out of nowhere due to financial struggles and lower attendance numbers. So imagine how these other parks are going to deal with it by the time Universal opens. But either way, fingers crossed, things start leaning more towards the positive side, and these parks that are improving currently can continue making their experience better for guests, and the parks that are struggling at the moment can find their way back to investing into themselves and bringing visitor numbers up and overall improving guest satisfaction and the customer experience. But yeah, I want to thank you all very much for watching this video, and if you've enjoyed it, then please make sure to like and subscribe and comment what you would like to see in the next video. Goodbye.